Seneca wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius that began with 4 words that stopped me cold: let us prepare our minds. Not motivate. Not optimize. Prepare. For what? For the one thing every productivity guru, every morning routine influencer, every self-help book refuses to name: the fact that today might be your last day alive. And the Stoics didn't treat that as a source of dread, they treated it as the most powerful tool for actually living. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact mental practice the Stoics called memento mori, remember that you will die, why they did it every single morning, and how applying a modified version of it can fundamentally change the decisions you make today, this week, and this year. Not theoretically. Practically. Here's why this matters right now. Most men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are living what Thoreau called lives of quiet desperation, not because they're lazy or broken, but because they've never been forced to confront the finite nature of their time. They defer the hard conversation, the creative project, the relationship repair, the career change, always to some vague future self who has more time, more courage, more clarity. The Stoics had a name for this delusion. They called it living as if you have 1,000 years. And they considered it the root of almost all human suffering. Memento mori was not morbid, it was a clarity tool, like wiping fog off a windshield. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man alive in the 2nd century, started every morning by reminding himself he was going to die. Not as a ritual, not as a performance, it's right there in Meditations, a private journal he never intended anyone to read. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This man commanded legions, managed an empire spanning 3 continents, and he began each day by mentally rehearsing his own mortality. Why? Because when you know the window is closing, you stop wasting time on the things that don't matter. The psychological mechanism here is what modern researchers call temporal scarcity. When we perceive time as unlimited, we procrastinate, we over-negotiate with ourselves, we tolerate situations we'd never tolerate if we knew the clock was running. When you vividly imagine this day as your last, your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for values-based decision-making, gets activated. You stop asking, "What do I feel like doing?" and start asking, "What actually matters?" The Stoics were using a form of cognitive priming 2,000 years before neuroscience had a name for it. The practice creates what Epictetus called the dichotomy of control: you stop wasting energy on what you cannot change. Epictetus was a slave. Literally owned by another man. He had no control over his body, his location, his daily schedule. And yet he became one of the most psychologically free men in recorded history. His entire philosophy rested on one distinction: some things are up to you, most things are not. Death is not up to you. The timing, the circumstances, the fact of it, not up to you. But how you respond to that knowledge? Entirely up to you. He taught his students to hold every external thing lightly, the way you'd hold a borrowed object: use it, appreciate it, but never forget it isn't yours to keep. Your health, your job, your relationships, all borrowed. All temporary. The moment you internalize that, the anxiety of losing them transforms into gratitude for having them. This works because anxiety is fundamentally a mismatch between what we're trying to control and what we actually can control. When you meditate on impermanence, on the fact that everything you have is on loan, you stop white-knuckling circumstances and start focusing on your response to them. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, came to the same conclusion through lived experience: the last human freedom is the freedom to choose your attitude. The Stoics built a daily practice to access that freedom before breakfast. Imagining death makes you bolder, not more timid. It kills the social anxiety that keeps men small. Think about the man who has spent 3 years in a job that drains him, staying because he's afraid of what his colleagues will think if he quits. Or the guy who hasn't told his father he loves him in 15 years because it feels awkward. Or the one who has a business idea he hasn't started because he's waiting for the perfect moment. Now imagine that man gets a health scare. A real one. Suddenly the opinion of his colleagues feels irrelevant. Suddenly the awkward conversation with his father becomes urgent. Suddenly the perfect moment is obviously now. That's not a personality change. That's a perspective shift. Memento mori is a way of accessing that perspective without needing the health scare. The Stoics understood what psychologists now call terror management theory. When mortality is salient, we reorganize our priorities around what actually matters to us at a deep level. The trivial stuff, social approval, minor embarrassments, the judgment of people we don't even respect, falls away. What remains is the core. The real values. The actual relationships. The meaningful work. The practice of memento mori is essentially a daily recalibration. You are shedding the accumulated weight of other people's opinions and returning to your own values. Every morning. The practice teaches you to love your life as it is, not as you wish it were, what the Stoics called amor fati. Nietzsche, not a Stoic but a man deeply influenced by them, coined the phrase amor fati, love of fate. The idea that you don't just accept what happens, you embrace it, you want it exactly as it is. Seneca wrote, Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est. Everything is foreign to us, only time is ours. When you spend 5 minutes each morning acknowledging that this day, with its frustrations, its imperfections, its unglamorous details, is one of a finite number of days you have, something shifts. The traffic that used to infuriate you becomes a few extra minutes to listen to something you love. The difficult conversation you've been avoiding becomes an opportunity you won't always have. The ordinary Tuesday becomes, suddenly, irreplaceable. This isn't toxic positivity, it's not pretending everything is fine. It's a recontextualization. The same event, viewed through the lens of finitude, has a completely different emotional weight. Research on gratitude practices consistently shows that framing experiences as finite, this may be the last time I do this, dramatically increases present moment engagement and life satisfaction. The Stoics built this into a daily ritual because they understood it doesn't happen automatically. You have to deliberately practice seeing your life as the gift it is, every single day, because the brain's default is to take it for granted. You don't need to wait until the morning. The evening review is where the practice becomes a feedback loop. The Stoics practiced what they called the evening examination, sitting quietly before sleep and reviewing the day. Seneca described it in detail. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. This isn't guilt or self-punishment. It's calibration. Did I act in line with my values? Did I waste time on things that won't matter when I'm gone? Did I say what needed to be said? The morning practice of memento mori sets the intention. The evening review closes the loop. It tells you whether you actually live that way. This two-part structure, morning priming, evening review, creates what behavioral psychologists call an implementation feedback cycle. The morning practice activates your values and focuses your attention. The evening review gives you honest data about the gap between intention and action. Over time, that gap narrows. Not because you've read more philosophy or listened to more podcasts, but because you've built a daily system that keeps your finite, precious time in front of you. That's the entire mechanism. That's the whole practice. It's not complicated. It's just consistent. So here's what we covered. 1. Memento mori is a clarity tool, not a morbid ritual. Imagining death activates values-based thinking and cuts through the fog of procrastination. 2. The practice teaches you to work within the dichotomy of control, releasing anxiety about what you cannot change and focusing on your response to what is. 3. Confronting mortality makes you bolder. It dissolves the social anxiety and approval seeking that keep most men playing small. 4. Viewed through the lens of finitude, your ordinary life becomes something worth loving. And 5. The evening review closes the feedback loop, turning a morning insight into an actual change in how you live. The Stoics weren't obsessed with death because they were pessimists. They were obsessed with death because they were the most serious people alive about actually living. If this resonated, if something in here made you think about how you're spending your time, what you're tolerating, what you've been deferring, subscribe. We drop one of these every Tuesday and Friday. No filler, no fluff. Just the ideas that serious men have used to build serious lives. Hit the bell so you don't miss it. And if you want to go deeper on Stoic practice, the next video is right there.